This podcast is brought to you by Flex 7 from TenCate Protective Fabrics. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of enforced technology. Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tencatefabrics.com/Flex 7.
For all your medication and narcotic tracking needs, check out the LogRX app, created by career fire and EMS professionals. That's LOGRX.com.
Welcome to Tailboard Talk with
Chris Rasmussen,
Craig Nelson, and Jeff Wallin. Every month we explore different topics of interest to you, our cohorts in fire and emergency services. So whether you sit back and listen, sound off on the message board, or call in live to be part of the conversation, we welcome you to join us in our mission to improve the fire service for those we serve and those we serve beside. Now coming to you live from the Great White North, this is Tailboard Talk on Fire Engineering Talk Radio.
Hey, welcome to Tailboard Talk for Friday, September 20th. This is Jeff.
This is Craig.
And Chris.
Oh boy, it's a hot one out here in the Great White North, eh?
It's that time of year again, Jeff, where you wear a jacket in the morning and shorts, I guess, in the afternoon, evening.
Shorts in the afternoon, yeah. So getting the end of our summer in before things really start to cool off. It's getting darker earlier. It's getting lighter later. Don't like any of that kind of stuff, but it's a lot of things in the world we can't control.
No, the sunshine we can't really control.
Yeah, well, and to be honest, we've really been on the lucky end of it. When you look across the United States right now, there's a hurricane, obviously, that just hit down south. Not funny. Did a lot of damage. And then out west, there are a lot of wildfires going on right now that are continuing to grow in size, and that's concerning too. So there's a lot of people, a lot of our first responder family that's out there and working hard right now and have been for the last few weeks.
Yeah, and we even experienced some pretty serious fallout from that yesterday and the day before with smoke from the West Coast and the Canadian wildfires being pulled up in the atmosphere and wrapped back around to us. And we had air quality warnings going on here for folks to stay indoors because of that. It's cleared up now, but just can't imagine the scope and the size of the fires and the smoke being generated to travel that far.
Yeah, halfway across the country.
Yeah, halfway across the country. It's crazy.
Well, I think about our brothers and sisters out there. You look at, was it Arizona that set the record for the most consecutive days over 100 degrees, working in those conditions? A lot of people are very kind to us and go, wow, I give you credit for working in those freezing temperatures. And it can be brutal. But for me, at least, I'll take the cold over the heat just about every day.
Right.
Yeah, at least we can warm up, we can change clothes, we can put other things out there to deal with it, to rotate crews, but that heat's really difficult to work with. I don't know how they do it.
Well, when you got turnout gear on, it's like you're like a walk-in sauna.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Conversely, we've had like a very mild year here. Only 3 90-degree days in the Fargo-Moorhead area this summer, which is, I think, a new record. It ties the previous record low from a long time ago for whatever that's worth. We don't really enter weather data into our run reports, though, so we have to rely on the Weather Service for this. But that kind of ties into the subject we were looking to talk to tonight, the fact that maybe we're not getting all of the data to help us make the decisions that we need out of the current NFIRS or NFIRS system that we've got.
Yeah, this kind of hit me when I started thinking about when did I find out about NFIRS? And I've been in the fire service 25-ish years, right in that range. And I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but I don't think I even ever heard of NFIRS. At least, I guarantee it was at least 5 years in, and I think it was closer to 7 or 8 years in the fire service before I even heard about it. Do you guys, either one of you, similar experience?
Probably about the same.
Yeah.
I think
About the same too.
we more or less when we started doing run reports and like, why am I have to do this and why? What's going on with this information and who's using this information? Those kind of things. So.
I chuckle because I go, even when I started doing run reports, it didn't even faze me. I'm like, no, that's just a run report we do.
Yeah.
I didn't know where it went. I didn't know how it was collected. I didn't know I got the general idea of a run report and documenting what you did and documenting an incident, but no clue about this is going to a national database and it has to be submitted to your state fire marshal's office and all that yada yada. But that's where I feel like this is something we need to bring a much bigger awareness to in the fire service. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe everybody else picked up on it a lot quicker than I did. Wouldn't be the first time.
Well, it goes back to data-driven information system, whatever you want to call them, using data to pre-plan, to organize your fire department, to plan for the future, to change plans, those kind of things, that data can bring into it. The one thing about NFIRS is I've obviously been around for a long time, but I've never used that data. We use our own pulled out from a third party RMS system. Is that right? RMS, record management system. Yeah. So we pull that stuff out of there, but we get reports from the state fire marshal, or we get national reports. They don't necessarily reflect the city that I work for. So we obviously use our own reports and those things. It's great for tallying information, and it's worked over the years, and I'm sure many great organizations have used the information to pre-plan and do all the things we talked about. But I always thought there's got to be a better way, and I think it's coming. Hopefully it's coming.
Well, we didn't even say what it was, and maybe that's part.
We didn't say what NFIRS
What is NFIRS? Yeah, and that's maybe where this starts, is because I guarantee in those first 5 to 8 years, whenever I finally figured out there's this NFIRS system, it's understanding what does that acronym even mean?
Yeah, National Fire Incident Reporting System, of course.
Yeah, logically,
sure,
naturally.
yes.
Yeah, you go, huh?
Are you sure?
First, I'm absolutely sure.
I can Google it, make sure that's that's correct. So
yeah, that's the first thing that you get taught in Firefighter 1, right?
Well, and that was one of my thoughts today. Is I go, okay, part of my job is helping oversee the training for our organization. And I stopped and I thought, well, I don't know that we really cover it that well anywhere through the whole academy.
Well, and talking about who else uses the data, why it's going where it is, who designed that, who dictated what we're doing, and how where your data goes to when you're done with it.
Yeah.
Obviously you use it, but it goes to somebody else. It goes somewhere. In Fargo, do you submit directly to the database, or do you go through your state fire marshal's office?
We go through our state fire marshal.
Okay. Same in Minnesota.
Yep.
And in some states, they report directly into the systems.
Okay. And so for those of you that aren't aware, what we're talking about is our NFIRS, National Fire Incident Reporting System, is going to be changing, because it's been kind of the same platform for many, many years. And I'm going to go off on a lot of tangents here. I'm sorry. But I think that's one of the problems are that there are many platforms you can report through NFIRS on. So
right.
there's Firehouse, there's New World.
Third party vendors. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and so that's part of what leads to the confusion. As a new firefighter, I don't know all the fire software I don't know what RMS is and what a CAD system is. As a new firefighter, you don't know that,
right?
And so then you just, I think this is what everybody uses, but it's not.
Yeah. So the NFIRS system is really two things right now. It is a national database of incidents from across the country, but it is also a very specific system of what data we're collecting and what possible fields we've got, what values we can enter into them. They've got the classification of the incidents, the type of run responses that we can collect data on: emergent, non-emergent, dispatched, not initially dispatched, but responded emergent, and so forth. But that's all part of a system that was designed at the federal level so that data could be collected across departments and utilized to compare between departments the fire situation that's going on, and also to get a handle nationally on what the fire problem is today and how it's been trending over time.
I'm starting to think about, part of my job for a while was actually to send this data to the state. So I sent it into the state fire marshal's office. That was my job. Every month I'd submit the previous month's data, and it would kind of go off to the state fire marshal. And I didn't worry about it, didn't really think about it. And then again, almost embarrassed to say, but several years down the road past that, I ended up in this EFO program thing. And it turns out you can actually access some of that data. I know, it blew my mind.
No, it's crazy.
Wow. Hey, well, Yeah, but again, didn't know that.
Right.
And so I think we have a gap there in awareness and teaching people about the National Fire Incident Reporting System, which now we are moving away from that very, very rapidly here. And that's what we wanted to visit about tonight, is to bring awareness to this, make everybody that we can aware of the changes that are coming and how quickly they're coming down the pipeline. And I think it'll be a very good change. Everything I've heard, well, almost everything I've heard has been very positive so far about the new system. And I'm just going to, the new system is called NERIS.
Chris, what does that stand for?
I can Google it.
Yeah. Well, I have the acronym right here, but I don't have the words. So I don't want to mess it up.
It's little words. It's little words below the big letters. Hard to read.
I don't even
Old
know what I'm
eyes.
looking at.
Right below there.
So read it yourself.
Okay. Oh, okay. So
I mean, I don't know what you're.
So the new one is the National
National,
Emergency
yeah.
Response Information System. Memorize that. You'll be tested later.
I didn't want to mess you up on that one. If I can't read it, I can't even find it on that sheet of paper right now. So
How did you drive here?
So this is only.
I wasn't on the road while he was.
This
driving.
is only. This has only come to my attention in the last month. To be honest with you, I've not heard any of this talk before, so I got to spend some of my day today kind of doing some research. But I did come across, and people should really look into this podcast. It's on fire engineering. It was June 2nd, fire service data and tech talk. And it talks about NERIS, and it's got the guest is Tom Jenkins, and he's kind of been the,
like the godfather of.
the
NERS.
face of it. But if you listen to the podcast, there's hundreds of people in the background working on it, and he gives them all credit. So
Yes.
he just happens to be the face of it. But I'd recommend everyone get out there and listen to this one, because he really gives the nitty gritty dirt on what the program is going to be able to do for us, and or their expectations at least, and then what the future will hold for it. So, it's pretty interesting. They're talking about, obviously we can already integrate CAD, and we can already do some of that, but they integrate weather. What always frustrated me about, I always called it NFIRS, but NFIRS, was there was sometimes you go on calls and you couldn't find the proper code.
Yeah.
Was it this? Was it that? And you just kind of settled on something, and that doesn't give you accurate data when you're settling on something.
Mm-hmm.
So this gives you more, I'm not going to say more options, but it's going to give you opportunities to add that special information that we go on that can help other departments. You can gather data for the same type of runs that are going on in the system. So I think it's going to be a pretty neat thing. What I did like about it when I listened to the podcast was they're willing to change, willing to adapt over time, and obviously when it first rolls out, it's going to have its quirks like every other computer program in the world does. Mm-hmm. And firemen are going to curse it. But I think they're willing to make changes and willing to adapt pretty much like annual basis, if not more often, which will be great. And to give some real life data. And as we all know how technology is advanced, maybe this can be used into, some automatic dispatching type situations, sending the proper equipment through, I don't even know what AI is, but through AI, do those kind of things that help speeds up and sends the right resources in a quicker amount of time, which in turn helps the community needs. So.
Sure. So I didn't know we were going to be talking about call handling time today, because I've got a lot of opinions.
Well, I don't want to get too far into that.
For another show.
Well, so for those of you that are listening, so these we're talking about these national systems to collect data on what we do, how we do it, so we can learn from it. Right. And Chris kind of just talked about that, making data-driven decisions. So as you're looking to the future of your organization and what kind of equipment do you need, what kind of training do your personnel need, what kind of call are we seeing, and what's the call volume on, and tracking and trending that data. This is hopefully at the heart of it here is your incident reporting, and the old system NFIRS moving away because of it being so cumbersome. And that was one of the things I've heard recently from the U.S. Fire Administrator herself, is that the numbered codes are gone.
Right.
They're gone. But everybody needs to be aware of this, because from what I've heard, and the plan is, and from what she said, they're sticking pretty hard to this plan. It's moving forward. It's going to
Mhm.
be, the new system's going to be web-based.
Cloud-based, right?
Or cloud-based.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yep.
Oh.
Yep. And it will do everything any department needs: volunteer, career, large, small, etc. But some departments collect a little bit more data, and so
Okay.
it'll do all your basic stuff. But a lot of us have record management systems, RMS systems, and CAD systems, the computer aided dispatch, that help us collect more data and do some other things. And they said that we're still going to need both of those in most cases. So most departments are going to continue operating similar to what they have been doing, but the reporting process is going to be less clunky, it's going to be easier, and it's going to be faster. So for our crews that are writing the reports, it's not sitting down and searching for that numbered code. They move through the report a lot quicker. It's a lot more intuitive.
Right. And I think that's the hope, obviously the program will be quicker, and technology is advanced. I'm sure you can probably do it from your phone while you're on your way back, or your laptop, or
That is one of the
right.
the
So
functions
I mean, that's
planning to have built into that.
especially with the technology-based generations that are coming up. That's just quicker for them. They can
Sure.
thumb their way right through it and be done in 15 minutes, or not 15 minutes, but as fast as they can do it.
Yeah.
And then give good, accurate data information out there. So I'm assuming that then now, because it's going to replace NFIRS, that obviously that information that comes through NERIS will be used for federal government stuff. They'll be used for funding of the fire services, maybe grants, maybe those kind of things from the government. I'm going to make an assumption that they're going to use that data to drive certain directions also. So hurricane responses, land fires, all that kind of stuff, and be able to use that information, which will be easy to put in, they say, and move forward.
And I had an opportunity to hear some representatives from some of the test departments that have been using it speak and talk about the little bit of the application of it, the difficulty of it, etc. And they all kind of concurred that it is quicker to fill out the reports. It is easier. So again, a lot of good coming with that as we move down this road. And right now, I was just looking at the article where they have test departments that are coming online using this system, and there's a map. I mean, you can look this all up online, but right now, really the only area of the United States that's not covered with there's 50 test departments that's not covered is kind of that upper northwestern part where you got Washington, Idaho, Montana, Oregon. Up in that area, there aren't really any departments, but the 50 departments that they have testing it are career, volunteer, large, small, all kinds of different departments. So they are getting a good cross section. It was just kind of interesting to see that it is all across the United States except for that upper northwest area.
That takes a while. It takes a while to get the wagons across.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of the departments they have a couple clusters that are grouped together, so they can test some of the data sharing when you're automatic aiding or mutual aiding on calls.
That was one of the things too that they talked about that I thought was really awesome, because that's auto aid is something we are looking at in our area, and I know a lot of other areas have already been doing it and kind of look at us like, "What do you mean you're not doing
way
it?"
behind?" Yeah.
But the group there said that's one thing that's drastically improved is right now if somebody auto aids into your jurisdiction, you don't really have a way to track that run, but now with NERIS, you can.
Sure.
So that's a huge, huge addition.
Yeah.
No, I think it's going to be good. Also, one thing I was reading on is you're able to access like your department's home web page, kind of its own page for real time data.
Yes.
Right.
And so I thought that was pretty interesting. Like right now, what's going on?
When you look at NFIRS, I touched on it earlier, but I didn't really touch on the complexity and the difficulty to get your data. To get your data through NFIRS, you need a password, and you got to get that from at least.
You need the authorization from your state to be able to do that as well, too.
Yeah, it had to come from our state fire marshal's office to get a password to be able to log into the system, and then you logged in the system, and it was clunky, and it didn't really provide much data. And I think a lot of people know that, but for those of you that aren't as familiar with it, it prevented people from using data. So in our case in Fargo, we never ever use that data because it's
Nope.
too clunky. It doesn't tell us much. So we've always been using our own RMS system coupled with some other software systems to pull that data out and
And I'm
dive a lot deeper.
I'm guessing some departments will still use an RMS system.
Yep.
It'll be just like NERS would be put into that system and operate on the front side or back side of it. But I think the way I was listening to it and the way I've been reading on it, it's like some smaller departments can be able to use it as their standalone
Yes.
facts, because your department has its own page that you can log into and see exactly what's going on in your own department. So
something I'm really excited about with this system is in the Fargo-Moorhead area, all of our fire departments are on the same dispatching platform, the same CAD, the same record management system that we all share. We've got our own records for our individual departments, but since they're all on the same system and the same piece of software, we can run comparison data with our neighboring departments.
Right.
Run volumes, run counts, some fairly simple things. We can probably do more complex things, but just being able to sit down at one computer and say, well, what does our run volume at station 2 look like compared to Fargo's stations? Right. Are we, busier, less busy? What does that look like? Response times could be interesting as well, but most of the time, just comparing our run volume and our workload and being able to do that without something being clunky in the way is just amazing. And if the whole country can get to that, where the public data portions of their information are searchable and usable by authorized people. So if you wanted to compare data with cities of similar sizes to see how things are going, you're supposed to be able to do that in the system, while protecting some of the HIPAA protected information that stays with the local agency only.
But I did see reading through and listening to some other stuff about this. They talked about it's a fire department program. So we all know our third party RMS systems, the one we use. Jeff and I have attended many regional meetings on these things, and it's always frustrating to sit there. But it is some of it, and most of it is driven by PD sometimes.
Yeah.
So this is a standalone fire service program, which I think will be handy for a lot of people.
And perhaps if you have a local RMS that you're using and they're upgrading to be NERIS compatible, but you're not able to get all the data that you want to, hopefully there's a secondary route of going through your own department's page for your data.
Right.
Because the stuff you enter in your RMS is just handshaking and being pushed out into NERIS basically in real time is the assumption. But that you might have another way of being able to utilize that data, because I know that we're typically pulling data out of our records system and using Excel or other third-party tools to do some analysis on it as well too, because the RMS isn't robust enough to do everything that we want to do with that data. And sometimes we're limited in the fields that we can even get out. That there's some data we get in that haven't been set up to be exported, and so sometimes you're frustrated by the limitations you have there. And hopefully that won't be the case.
6 computer programs you use cause you problems. I can't believe that. No, it's interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. So they're talking about a January 1, 2026 drop dead date, right?
Yep, that's when NFIRS will be. It literally just they're pulling the plug.
Yeah, gets its memorial service, and then we move on.
So if you think about right now, we're late in 2024. We're in the fall of 2024. Mm-hmm. A year from now, we will be staring down within a few months the shutdown of the old NFIRS system. Yeah,
and I sure hope our RMS system is looking at it, or we'll be looking for a new RMS system.
And that is
great. That's
one of the big concerns out there, because like we hear from a lot of software vendors, oh yeah, it's going to work. It's going to be great. Yep, we got it. There are obviously different RMS systems out there, different CAD systems, and they say they're working on it. So hopefully they are. Yeah. These companies are aware of it.
Well, I'm guessing they will, or they'll be forced to. Otherwise, they're going to lose their business. Obviously that's computer stuff. But no, I'm excited to see it come out. I'm excited to see what it can do. NFIRS, I believe, came out in the early 70s. If I'm not incorrect on that, about 50 years. And I know there was some time in there. I read an article that didn't make any improvements or changes for 24 years. I mean, that's a lot of lost data that happened in there. A lot of things changed in that 24 years. And then it's been a while since they've even made the last change, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm.
05, did you say earlier?
I think it was around that
Yeah.
time frame. I'm not
So
sure.
that's
about the exact year,
20,
but
19
thinking
years
back to
ago.
when we changed computer programs and went from DOS
Right.
to a Windows-based program.
So just think of things that have changed. I mean, you have a hard time finding how do you code a battery car fire, those kind of things, or a scooter fire, or just those things, how much they change. So I was excited to hear Tom Jenkins talk about how they're willing to like constantly upgrade and change and add and look for things. So that gives accurate data to everybody, not only us at the fire service and our own departments, communities, but the states, federal level, National Fire Administration. All those things are going to have, I think, are going to have more accurate data. Hopefully.
Well, and one of the things that excites me too, and is important with bringing awareness to this, is with the old system, it was very difficult to access. So your average firefighter isn't going to be able to access it because they got to get a login from the state fire marshal, and then you got to know how to do it. With this, just like we were talking, each department will have your own page. My understanding is it'll be very easy for a lot of people to access it. So hopefully we get more of our firefighters involved in learning and looking at the data and understanding what the department's doing and how it's doing it. And giving them the opportunity to ask their administrators, their chief officers, hey, what is this? Tell me about this system. Can you show me how it works? Yeah, I would love that. Understand what you're doing. Be able to look at the data when you're giving tours and understanding what kind of incidents you're responding to and how often you're responding to them, I think is really important in helping them understand why some of the decisions that get made are made.
Yeah, so if that information is easy to obtain, we can show it to the employees a lot faster, more often. And now I have 141 people looking at it instead of me or you. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Or four of us, four old guys or something. And it's kind of nice to have kind of have an idea that they can help out, and maybe they come up with some different ideas too. So I'm excited for it.
And one of the things I love about our new firefighters is they're getting better and better at asking why. They ask questions. We didn't ask as many questions as we should have back 20 some years ago. They're getting better at asking why, and I love that. I want them to ask questions. Ask us. And if I don't have the answer, I'll help you find it. We'll go find it somewhere. But ask us questions, and they're really good at doing that. So again, I remember as a firefighter going, I don't understand why they're doing that. That doesn't make sense.
Right.
Well, and then you eventually get the information later and you go, oh, that does make sense. But so hopefully this is one of those things that really helps them become more aware of what their department's doing, how it's doing it, and understanding what kinds of decisions are being made and why.
Right.
So there were some recommendations for departments to get ready for that switch over to NERIS.
Yes.
Interesting. Let's go over those.
Yeah, let's run through these. So the first thing is identify a NERIS lead for your department. So somebody in your department that's going to lead this, that's going to prepare the organization for it. And if you don't know who that is, again, ask.
Yeah, if there's somebody who's really interested in the data, I mean, that's the type of person you want to have in there. They're going to be the administrator for your department. So they'll be able to set up new people in your system, remove people as they move through the department. But there's some initial setup too, demographics of your community, the outline through GIS, the
jurisdictional
borders. So that can be added into the system. And you might need to work with a city or a county GIS person to help do that. And in some counties, that person might be helping multiple departments in your county. And so it might be a countywide project that you do as well, too, to get everybody set up properly for NERIS, since you have to work with some of the same CAD people.
Yeah. And part of it, too, I think is interesting that they're going to have you identify your station locations. So not just your jurisdictional boundaries, but where are your stations, and then what kinds of equipment do you have in that station? Do you have engines? Do you have trucks? Do you have chief officer vehicles? Do you have ambulances? So again, collecting all that basic data about your organization, about your jurisdiction.
Step one.
Yep.
Is there a step two?
I think I kind of
you got to cover them all
more than I planned to. Well, it just came out.
Yeah. Even if there isn't exactly a formal step to learn more about the system,
so
there's a NERIS webpage. If you just Google NERIS, NERIS, one of the top results that'll come up is the homepage at the U.S. Fire Administration that this program is running under, where they've got updates. They've got a lot of the information that we used tonight to massively prepare for this show. But the graphic that also shows who are the test departments right now, and they've got a table that lists all the departments. FDNY is one of the 50 that are testing right now.
Really?
So talk about getting a lot
of information,
a lot
real
of
quick.
practice, finding lots of problems, or how to enter all sorts of types of incidents and multi-station incidents and all that kind of stuff.
That was
cool.
The only thing I heard that isn't so great right now is the test departments. Those that are participating are doing 2 run reports for every
dual
incident.
entry
So
right now?
they're doing,
Of course,
they're doing the dual entry in the old system and the new system. So thanks to those people doing that, you're doing an important job that really is important to the future of the fire service.
That's a lot of work to do that.
Yes.
We've done short-term testing when our records management system's doing another update, and that seems like a daunting task.
I didn't like it.
I know.
I don't like
short
it.
window of time too.
One day is enough. Yeah. So they're talking about you're going to see it more and more in 2025 coming out. More test departments, obviously, and then drop dead date January 1, 2026 is when NFIRS goes away. NFIRS, and we're heading into NERIS.
If you've got a software vendor you're doing incident reports through, now's the time to get in contact with them, find out what their plans are for switching over, if they're working on that same timetable, and if there are any changes that are going to need to occur between you and your dispatch center with that data handling and integration.
Should be pretty seamless, I'm guessing.
What could go wrong?
My understanding is that they are looking for departments starting in the kind of the first part of 2025 that are going to want to be some of those first ones to onboard. So like we said, drop dead's 2026.
You're going to be working on it anyway.
Everybody's going to be onboarding at some point in 2025 if they haven't already.
Right.
So think about that. If it works for your department to be one of the pioneering ones, the first ones on it, go for it. Again, ask your administration, ask your chief officers, hey, tell me a little bit about this and where are we at with it?
Right.
You might not get all the answers yet, because that's what we're doing right now too, is figuring out, okay, how are we going to do this? When are we going to do it? So we've had those discussions, but we don't have all the answers yet.
Hopefully those third-party RMS people that you call and you mention NERIS, that they don't get the same look that I had this morning.
What?
So get them working on it. Get your department starting to look at it. And
near us, near them.
Near us, yeah.
And what was that podcast we referred to earlier too?
Let me look it up. It was Fire Engineering June 2nd, Fire Service Data and Tech Talk. And it was all about NERIS, and it had Tom Jenkins on there. So I actually learned a lot by just listening to it. It was a good foundation of what they're trying to accomplish with it, and gave some information. So just get off our podcast. You want to watch ours again, I'm sure.
Sure.
Get the views up. But if you have some downtime and you're not listening to us, jump on this Fire Service Data and Tech Talk. I'll be honest with you. I'm not gonna say anything about it. It was the first time I've ever listened to this podcast, because the title doesn't excite me, but it's just not my niche. But for those guys that are out there for data and tech, I believe it was Eddie Buchanan who does the podcast, and he does a great job, and he's passionate about data and the fire service. So look into it.
Yeah. My hope would be that all of our listeners bring this topic up in conversation with not just your administration and chief officers, bring it up with your fellow firefighters, anybody in your department. Start the conversations. Help make everybody else aware of it, what it is, how it works.
Very good. And not being a data guy, you still like that podcast. It's not.
Yeah, it was actually good. Yeah,
I thought it was good. I think that's good.
I was thinking, oh man, this is not. Yeah. This is going to put me. It was good for napping or something, but it was actually very good, and it actually probably will listen to more of his podcasts, because he had a lot of good information. He had a lot of good questions. Eddie Buchanan was very good and very knowledgeable. So check it out. It was perfect introduction for NERIS for me.
Very good. All right. You don't have anything else? That's all I came to the table with today.
I think this is the first time we've kind of done a short and sweet show.
It's kind of a public service announcement more than anything, to get this information out there. And I think I'm sure a lot of people that might look at it and not even know what NERIS is. So listen to us, gather your data, get your research going, listen to other podcasts. It's coming, and I think it's going to be good. Sure, it'll have its quirks at first, but I think it'll be right into where we go. And I just like the idea that it's an updated data information system, because there's stuff that we're seeing out on the streets that doesn't match our codes anymore, and we need to change.
And I'm encouraged by the fact that, the RMS system we're using typically has, a couple agencies, one or two agencies that beta test something before it gets pushed out to everybody. And then you have to kind of go through the fixes of the things that you didn't find right up front, and to have done their own designs first and then have 8 departments beta testing or alpha testing. I don't know, whatever it is. Maybe it's the first round of beta testing, and then expanding it out to 50 after that, and putting a lot of time and effort into this. I'm really hopeful that it's actually going to perform really well. And they're moving faster than I ever thought the government could move on anything. I mean, this is really impressive. The pace of the turnover, where it's going, and how it's being done. It's being managed really, really well from what I can see. And so I'm really excited.
And firemen will tear it apart and dig into it and break it.
Yep.
So
and that's what they've been having them do. That's those test groups. That's what they've been diving in, tearing it apart. Hey, don't like this, change that. And that was one of the things that the group said too, is that the changes, they've been very responsive. So they send something in, and literally within a day, it's changed.
Yeah.
And so
that's amazing.
So the group working on this, and the U.S. Fire Administration really are doing a nice job. I again, maybe being a little cynical, thought the same thing, like, because I started hearing about this, I don't know, a year, maybe 2 years ago.
There's no way they can stick to
and
that.
You're like, that you're just like, whatever. I'm not worried about it. It's not going to happen in my career. No, it's going to happen, and it's right around the corner right now. So that's awesome. That's exciting, and embrace it.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're going to hear more and more about it, and I'm sure when you go out to FDIC, there's going to be classes on it, and I'm sure the Fire Academy is going to have classes on it, and they're going to go and get this moving. So get out there, take the class, read about it, learn about it.
Yeah, go out to FDIC if for no other reason to learn more about the NERIS.
Right, that's the only reason.
All right. Well, you could have been doing a lot of other things than listening to us right now. Appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Be safe.
Be safe.
This podcast is brought to you by Flex 7 from TenCate Protective Fabrics. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of enforced technology. Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tencatefabrics.com/Flex7.
For all your medication and narcotic tracking needs, check out the LogRX app, created by career fire and EMS professionals. That's LogRX.com.